Hello, and welcome to That's English.
Hi, everyone.
Samantha, do you think power is shared equally these days between men and women?
No, it's still very difficult for women to rise to the top and become board members at work or members of parliament.
In today's documentary, we hear about some of the barriers which prevent women reaching positions of power.
We also hear how women's leadership style differs from men's.
Britain prides itself on being a society that values equality. Yet in practice, a disproportionate amount of power still remains with men. Women account for fewer than 15% of chief police officers and only slightly more than 15% of High Court judges. Since 2010, the number of women in Parliament has increased by just 2.5%. And men in Westminster still outnumber women 4 to 1. One area where women are progressing is in business. Britain's biggest companies have recently hit the government target of having 25% of their executive teams filled with women. In fact, companies with more women on their boards have been found to outperform their rivals by 42%. Lisa Buckingham is the Director of Diversity at the Institute of Directors, which supports business leaders in the UK. She's one of the people helping women rise to the top.
The major barrier to becoming a powerful woman in business still is the fact that we have children. We take time off for childcare. When we return to work, possibly we want flexible hours, and still I think business is sort of quite old-fashioned. They don't like it. They like a suit jacket on the back of the chair, and sometimes that doesn't suit women.
Lisa is responsible for establishing Breaking the Mould Awards, which recognise companies that create opportunities for more female executives. She has her own views about women as leaders.
Actually, women's leadership style is rather different. I think we tend to be more inclusive, a bit more nurturing, and I think that is probably quite good. We do have a sense that keeping everyone together rather than having a firm thumb on things is not such a bad idea.
John Connolly works for a female boss at technology giant Fujitsu. He tells us what it's like to work for a woman.
A good leader of any team, there shouldn't be any difference in terms of the quality of the person, the respect you give them, and the support they give you. However, there are certain differences that you come across in terms of styles. In a relationship where there's a female leader, you often find the tone of the conversations less aggressive in the working environment and far more positive in looking forwards.
John's boss is Helen Lamb, a senior director at Fujitsu. She describes her journey to one of the top roles in a technology company.
I left university with a degree in business studies, and if I'm honest, I didn't really know what the world of work had open for me in terms of opportunities. So I joined a technology company, and I was very fortunate with the company that I joined because I was offered the opportunity to work in different parts of the business. And I've actually stayed with this company for 20 years because of the opportunities that they've offered me.
Research shows that women rise to power slower than men because they wait to be recognised rather than proactively seeking promotion.
But I think women are terribly poor at pushing themselves forward, at talking about their skills, at saying, hey, you know, I can do this. I would like that job.
Networking, negotiating, and flexibility are needed to rise to the top, whether you're a man or a woman. But the best way to increase the number of women in power is to have other women in power who support those on their way up.
So to get to positions of power, women need to push themselves forward and make sure people recognise their skills. You're good at that, Samantha.
I should go far.
But one of the main barriers still seems to be having children and the problem of childcare.
Yes, definitely.
Now, let's listen again to how Lisa described the difference in women's leadership style.
Actually, women's leadership style is rather different. I think we tend to be more inclusive, a bit more nurturing, and I think that is probably quite good. We do have a sense that keeping everyone together rather than having a firm thumb on things is not such a bad idea.
She says they are more inclusive and nurturing and not so worried about having a firm thumb on things. In other words, they have a more encouraging, less controlling style.
And John said women bosses tend to be less aggressive and have a more positive outlook.
We asked our international friends about power in their country. Who traditionally has held the most power in your country? Politicians, business, army, the church or religious groups, the media? Do you think this is changing?
Traditionally, a lot of the power in Jamaica rested with the CIA. And, they interfered with Jamaican politics in such a huge way in the 1970s. We're still dealing with the repercussions of that.
I think the answer is definitely the church. People going back a generation to like the 1970s, there was 91% of people in Ireland were attending weekly services, not even just once a month, every single week. Perhaps an interesting statistic about that as well is that when the recession hit, the attendance of church jumped 20%.
I would say politicians hold the biggest power in Scotland, especially the Westminster government, which I think holds too much power over Scotland.
In the past, the British monarchy held a lot of power in Australia. These days, politicians and the media tend to govern what we think.
It used to be politician back in days, like if you go 50 years back, and police, they are most powerful people. But now, because of the social media and education, people are more active. They know what's happening, what's wrong and right. They ask right questions.
Politicians have a lot of power, but they have to also work with the royal family. So the Queen and the government really have to make decisions together. So I would say it's equal between them.
I think the media has quite a lot of influence today, because what they want you to see, you're going to see round the clock, but what they don't want you to see, you're not going to hear about. So it's definitely the media.
The Jamaican said the CIA had interfered a lot in his country. Several people mentioned the power of politicians and the media.
The American said the media only show you what they want you to see. They have so much power these days.
But the Indian said the influence of education and social media means that people have more power than they used to.
Well, today in That's the USA, Alex visits the seat of power in North America, the capital city of Washington, D.C.
Hello again. Today we're in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Washington was founded in 1791 and is home to some of the most important buildings and landmarks in the country. As the capital of the United States, this city displays a genuine sense of power and history. Behind me is one of the most iconic U.S. buildings, the White House. The White House was built between 1792 and 1800. It's been the official residence of every U.S. president since then. Like the White House, the Capitol building has been in operation since 1800. I'm here with Sharon, who works at the Capitol Visitor Center. So, what is the Capitol building?
Oh, the Capitol building is where the legislative branch of the U.S. government meets, the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate.
So, can you briefly explain what happens here?
Well, there are chambers for the House and a chamber for the Senate on either end of the building. So members of Congress who have offices all around the Capitol come to the Capitol building, to the structure, and they cast their votes on legislation that's being considered that day. And the senators go to the North Wing and the House members go to the South Wing.
So what's so special about this building?
The Capitol building is actually one of the most powerful buildings in the United States. It's probably the most significant symbol of democratic government in the world.
So what have been some of the most historic moments that have happened here?
Well, the cornerstone was laid by our first president, President George Washington. And then the Capitol was actually burned in 1814 during the War of 1812. And then again in the Civil War, in our Civil War in 1861, the Capitol was in the middle of the fighting. So troops actually had to be stationed at the Capitol. They slept at the Capitol. For a while there was a hospital at the Capitol. There was even a bakery at the Capitol to feed the troops.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Washington has some awesome museums and galleries. The National Museum of American History contains some treasured items of North American culture. The first flag ever flown, the original Star-Spangled Banner, is on display here along with a detailed exhibition on its history. This flag was the inspiration for the United States national anthem. Washington receives millions of tourists every year. They come to see some of America's great monuments. I'm here at the National Mall with Jacob. So, what's the significance of the American flag to the American people?
I don't know if I can speak for all of America, but to me, it's a symbol of history, a symbol of being something, part of something that's bigger than yourself.
So which of Washington's monuments makes the most powerful impression on you, and why?
The most powerful monument to me in DC is the Vietnam Memorial Monument. It's actually a list of everyone's name that perished during the war or because of the war, and just the symbolism of that list is extremely powerful looking at the names there.
Are you proud to belong to one of the most powerful nations in the world?
Absolutely. I'm extremely patriotic. I don't necessarily agree with all the national sort of initiatives that we have, but I love to be an American, and I really do enjoy this country.
Well, great. Well, it's great to meet you, Jacob.
Thank you, Alex. It was a pleasure.
This is the Lincoln Memorial. Lincoln was the 16th president of the USA, and it was he who ended slavery. The Thomas Jefferson Memorial can best be viewed from this pier, or these paddle boats. It honors one of the founding fathers of the United States. He was the third president and helped draw up the Constitution, and it was Jefferson that wrote the Declaration of Independence, that all men were created equal with certain rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, in the pursuit of happiness, see you next time in Philadelphia.
If I were President of the United States, I'd change the Declaration of Independence to all men and women are created equal.
I think men is supposed to be a generic term for humans. Washington certainly has some impressive buildings and monuments.
Yes, North Americans are extremely proud of their nation, their history and heritage. And their Star-Spangled Banner. Da 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 da.
Yes, that's lovely, Samantha. Very nice, very nice. Bye for now.
We'll see you next time. Bye. Da, 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 da.